come vape with me. This is another video for beginners, and I want to talk about some little bits and pieces that beginners ought to know. If you watch videos on YouTube, you will find there are loads of videos by people who are telling you about vaping, and they have great big devices, things unrecognizable. Some of them are homemade, some of them are made by manufacturing companies. Those are called mods, and they've got all sorts of different tanks on these mods, and when they show you how well they vape, they make clouds and clouds of vapor. So the first thing you need to know is you don't have to do that. You don't have to make clouds of vapor. You need to make enough vapor that just satisfies you. In fact, it's the throat hit and the in-breath and the satisfaction that vaping should give you that is the important part. Whether you produce clouds of vapor is immaterial to the experience. Some vapor is nice because that is supporting your smoking habit, and we all know that smokers love to produce the smoke from the inhalation from their cigarette. I forgot to tell you in the last video that most ego batteries, like this one, have little buttons on them. These are manual batteries. Automatic batteries simply start themselves as you pull through the mouthpiece, and they give you a certain amount of electricity to vape on. But a manual battery is one that you push the button on to get it going. Those manual batteries and ego type batteries. Ego is a style of battery. It's the one that ends in an ending that looks like that, and most tanks fit on that, and you might have a Vision Clearomizer tank or some tank that you have bought with your device. So on an ego battery, and in fact most batteries now, on the manual batteries, to turn it off, you need to press the button 4 times, 5 times, 6 times. I know some that are even 7 times. So it's a quick press to turn it off, so that when you put it in your pocket or you drop it in your handbag, nothing presses on that little button and it can't start it vaping by itself in your pocket or as it presses on something close by it. When you charge your battery, it's very best to use the charger and the plug that you bought with the device. It's easy later on, when you get used to vaping, to buy another ego battery, and some of them, if they're very cheap, you need to be aware of the fact that inside the tube, which looks like an ego battery, is often a tiny little battery, and the rest is padding. What you've bought is a fake ego, and if you charge those on a device charging system that is not matched to the battery, you can have problems. You can have problems by too much electricity going in to charge it, and then you might have a blown battery, or it might catch on fire. So these things are necessary to know about. Charge your egos on the device charging cable that you got with it. There are some generic ego charging connections that you can charge most genuine ego batteries or genuine batteries, but In my last video, I said to you, be careful of junk. Be careful of junk e-liquid. If it's very, very cheap, it's junk and you do not know what's in it. Be careful of very, very cheap ego batteries. Be careful of anything that's offered to you very, very cheap in the land of vaping. I forgot to tell you that you need to take care of your batteries and your vaping equipment. And the reason for that is it's expensive. It's much cheaper than smoking. But if you take care of your devices, they will last you a long time. So it's not a good idea to drop things all over the place, to drop your device on a stone floor or on the pavement in the street, because the tanks that I showed you in my tank video are plastic. Some of them are actually Pyrex and they can break. And that is very distressing, and it's expensive to have to replace equipment in order to clean the connections on your batteries and your tanks. All you need is a piece of tissue which you twist, and often when it comes out you will see it's quite black, and you can put that same tissue into the tank, or on the, if it's a protruding connection, you can wipe the connection down, and do that on your battery charger as well. I would say that's about a once weekly job if you want the connections to work properly. Cleaning is a good idea. With a tank on the end of your device, you need to tip it if it's been standing for a while. If it's been standing, the e-liquid drops to the bottom of the tank, and your little coil, that's the electrical part that gives you the heat to split your e-liquid, might get dry. So you tip it before you vape it. If it's been lying next to you, it's lying, and so the e-liquid is in the coil, and so you can just vape off that. But most vapors using tanks will tip their tank at some time or another. That actually also applies to tanks with a coil or a bottom coil tank, because if it's lying flat next to you, all the e-liquid goes to the front, and often you can get the same effect of a dry hit from a bottom coil tank. So tipping tanks is essential, and you get very used to it, and in conversation it can be very expressive. Tip your tanks, folks, if you want to keep the coils nice and wet so that your vape is satisfying. About vaping, you can do stealth vaping. Some people call it discreet vaping or considerate vaping. I call it stealth vaping. That is vaping without showing any of the vapor that you have taken into your lungs. And how do you do that? You inhale, breathe in, double breathe in, and then very little e-liquid, vapor, comes out on your breath. So you can stealth vape just about anywhere. If you're a new vapor, practice stealth vaping or considerate vaping or discreet vaping, because there are times where you'll need to do that. Also, if you are in a place where you didn't want to release too much vapor, there is a way, by the way you breathe and by the way you hold the hit in your mouth, that you do not have to expel clouds and clouds of vapor. And you need to learn to do it, because there's times when you will need to stealth vape, especially as we go into the future where more and more places are banning vaping. And thanks for vaping.